My parents gave my tuition to my brother. His business needs it, they said. I left. Now, I'm running a $600,000 business while his is in ruins. The day my life turned upside down began with a dish of scrambled eggs and a phony grin. I vividly recall how the morning light touched the kitchen counter, how my mother's voice was just a bit too pleasant, and my father continued tapping his wedding band against his coffee mug like a metronome, as if he was practicing a speech in his thoughts. My name is Cole, and I was 20 when they sat me down that morning, 1 week before I was set to move into my college dorm room. I had spent the previous year painstakingly preparing every detail, including registering for orientation, searching for used textbooks, and working evenings at the grocery store to finance dorm decor and a quality laptop. I kept a spreadsheet for everything. I even purchased one of those little dorm-sized refrigerators because I had heard somewhere that college eating gets old quickly. For most of high school, I was the quiet, responsible one in our family. The type of child that had straight A's, avoided parties, and kept out of trouble. Not because I was afraid of the repercussions, but because I believed it would mean something. I figured if I worked hard and didn't make a fuss, someone would notice. Maybe not with grandiose praise, but with small gestures like upholding their commitments, like paying for the tuition they said they'd been saving for since I was 12. So when my mother said, "Cole, sweetie, your dad and I need to talk to you about something important," I merely smiled and ate another egg. I had no reason to be skeptical or ready myself for the tremendous gut punch that was about to come. My father leaned forward with the familiar serene expression he often used when he was prepared to lecture me on life's unfairness. And then he remarked, "We gave your tuition money to your brother. His business needs it more right now." That was all. One statement. No build-up, no apology, just a cold clinical pronouncement, as if he were announcing the weather. I didn't answer at first. I blinked. I recall gazing at the salt shaker on the table because I couldn't look them in the eyes. I briefly considered if they were kidding. But as I looked up, my mother had an odd face. Not guilty or humiliated. It was closer to pride. "You should be happy," she remarked. "You're supporting the family in a big way. This is what being part of something bigger than yourself looks like." That's the moment it hit me. They didn't tell me this because they felt awful. They were telling me this because they believed I should be proud because, in their opinion, I no longer had ambitions or objectives. I was simply convenient. Let me back up a little. My older brother Luke is 4 years older than me. Growing up, he was known as the golden kid. Every mistake he made was a learning opportunity. Every time I earned an A, he received a pizza party for remembering to take out the trash. When he left out of college after one semester to establish a tech firm in our garage, my parents reacted as if he had found fire. They poured money into his business like it was a trust fund, purchasing him equipment, assisting him in renting office space, and even co-signing a loan when times went tough. The firm never really took off, but Luke was constantly planning a new pivot, a fresh idea that simply needed a little more time. He wasn't lazy, I will give him that. But he acted recklessly. He borrowed as if nothing needed to be paid back. He promised things that he couldn't deliver. And somehow always managed to persuade our parents that he was on the threshold of something great. So, when I was admitted into a wonderful university, not Ivy League but very competitive, my parents informed me that they had the first year covered, and I trusted them. Why wouldn't I? I obeyed every rule. I played it safe. I remained in my lane, and in exchange, I was supposed to receive my shot. Instead, I received this. A morning lesson about making sacrifices provided with eggs and toast. I asked one question. So, what am I supposed to do now? My father glanced at me, as if I were being ridiculous. Take a gap year, get a job. Plenty of kids your age need time to figure things out. I already figured it out, I said, scarcely recognizing my own voice. I'm supposed to move in next week. We know, my mother murmured softly, as if that made everything any better. And we're really sorry about the timing. But you're smart, Cole. You'll find another way. The toughest thing wasn't the decision. They acted as if this was a chance for me to improve. It's as if losing my future was a character-building exercise. I did not shout. I did not argue. I did not weep. I just nodded. Then I excused myself from the meal and went upstairs to my room, closing the door. That was the moment everything changed, because something deep within me shattered. Not in a dramatic movie scene when I destroyed a mirror or punched a wall. It was quieter than that, more definitive, like a switch being turned off. I did not sleep that night. I laid in bed, looking at the ceiling, replaying every discussion I'd ever had with my parents, which now felt phony. Every time they told me they were proud. It was like finding your safety net was made of paper every time they stated, "We've got your back." The next morning I began packing my things, not for college but for something else completely. And it was the beginning. The start of a long year, the beginning of quiet between myself and my parents. The start of my disappearance, not literally but mentally. I left the house with 2 bags, $2,000 from my grocery store job and one rule etched in my memory. Never trust somebody who treats you like a backup plan. And while my brother's business was burning money like a blaze, I was going to launch my own, something I hadn't told anybody about, something discreet, something clever, because if they wanted me to support the family, I'd show them precisely how. But not in the way they had expected. Not even close. I did not have a plan. Certainly not a real one. But I had determination and fury. The type of calm, patient wrath that doesn't fizzle out quickly. The sort that simmers for months, eventually crystallizing into something crisp and valuable. I moved out on the same day they delivered the bombshell. I didn't even give them the opportunity to inquire where I was heading. I quickly packed my laptop, clothing, and the little money I had saved and contacted Ryan, a former co-worker at the grocery shop, who had a free room in his apartment across town. It was not glamorous. There was no air conditioning, so I had to sleep on a futon that creaked if I breathed too hard. But it was mine. Even more significantly, it was not theirs. I didn't chop them off totally. They texted a few times throughout the first week, checking in as if nothing had occurred. "How is your job search going? Let us know if you need anything." I didn't answer. I wasn't prepared. I was too busy feeling dumb to believe them. I was too preoccupied with my resentment to find an outlet for it. I spent my days alternating between Craigslist jobs and YouTube videos about digital marketing, e-commerce, coding, and anything else that may lead to anything more solid than stacking stores. At night, I worked shifts at a nearby sandwich restaurant. I told Ryan that I was simply figuring things out for a year before college. I did not tell him why. I couldn't even speak it out without feeling a strange combination of embarrassment and rage, like if I'd been duped and then supposed to thank the dealer. Meanwhile, Luke was everywhere. He was all over my parents' social media accounts. My mother uploaded photos of his workplace as if it were NASA headquarters. My father posted links to his company's website, as if he were creating the next Google. Every caption was full of pride. So proud of our oldest for pursuing his aspirations. Support small businesses. Check out Luke's latest effort. It made me nauseous. Not because he was successful, but because I was certain he wasn't. I knew Dad was losing money, straining to deliver on overpromised contracts, and striving to appear legitimate, while our parents tossed everything at him like it was monopoly money. He wasn't malicious, but privileged. The sort of person who never understood what no meant since no one ever told him. About a month after I moved out, my mother emailed me a photo of Luke standing in front of a large banner that said, "Genius Tech Solutions, Grand Opening." They had hired out a co-working space downtown. Balloons, ribbon-cutting ceremony. My folks were smirking in the backdrop, as if they'd won the jackpot. I didn't respond. I did not congratulate anyone. I just looked at that photo and realized how alone I was. And that was when things changed. I could have kept sulking. I could have waited a year and applied again for scholarships and loans, but I knew better now. If I desired a future, I realized I had to create it myself, brick by brick, if for no other reason. So I began learning feverishly. I had always been tech-savvy. In high school, I operated a little tutoring business, helped kids repair their phones, and even built a few bespoke PCs. But now I started digging deeper. I taught myself how to run Facebook advertising, discover profitable dropshipping items, and create sales content that converts. I watched 10 hours of lessons every day, attended online courses that I couldn't pay, and discovered alternative means to get them. I tried every free trial known to man. I failed a lot. We lost money on terrible product concepts. I ate way too many ramen bowls. But I kept going. 3 months later, I opened my first actual store. It wasn't fancy. It was simply a niche gadget website that sold portable humidifiers and phone holders. But I discovered a rhythm. I reinvested everything. They lived on pennies. I even canceled my Spotify subscription to save money and started listening to motivating YouTube videos instead. The grind grew intoxicating, and eventually things began to click. By the 6th month I was making more each week than I did in a month at the sandwich business. I did not inform anyone, not Ryan, not my old pals, and certainly not my family. This was not about boasting, it was about creating something that no one could take from me. Meanwhile, things at home became strange. My mother started phoning again. Initially, it was casual, a voicemail here and a message there. "Hey honey, just checking in. Hope you're doing okay." Then it became more insistent. We haven't heard from you in a while. Can we meet up? Your dad's worried. And then one day, she emailed this. Luke could really use your aid. You're quite skilled with computers. I reread it 3 times. Laughed aloud. The arrogance. I did not react. I didn't have to react since at the time, I had something better. Leverage. But I wasn't prepared to utilize it yet. Not till the breaking point. That followed 6 months later. I received a message from my cousin Sophie. She was close to my parents. She babysat me when I was tiny, but we hadn't spoken in years. She emailed me a snapshot of a post on my mother's Facebook. We're very proud of both our boys, Luke, who's changing local tech, and Cole, who's boldly taking a gap year to find himself. Family often entails making difficult decisions. That's what it's all about. My jaw tightened, supporting one another. They framed it as if I had decided to forego college. As if this were some heroic self-sacrifice, as if I had willingly given up my future so Luke could play CEO. And they liked it. Cole, who said, "You raised such generous boys." Sounds like a darling. I wanted to shout, but I remained silent. I remained concentrated till the phone came. It was Tuesday. I was in the process of completing orders when my phone called. My dad. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, he phoned again and again. Finally I responded. "Cole," he murmured, breathing heavily as if he had been sprinting. "I need to speak with you. It's about Luke." I said nothing. He paused and then sighed. "His business, it's not doing well." "Oh really?" I said. "He's behind on rent for the office space. The loan we co-signed is... well, the payments are piling up." I couldn't speak. "We were hoping," he whispered, "that you might be able to help. You've always been good with numbers. Maybe you could take a look at the books, see if there's anything we're missing." It was the right time. The exact moment I felt the crack in our family spread into a canyon. They'd stolen everything from me. My faith, my future, and tuition. They crawled back as it fell apart. But things grew worse. My mother called later that night. She spoke softly, like if she were casting a spell. "Sweetheart, we know things didn't go as planned, but Luke is your brother. He needs you. We all need you." That was my last word. "You gave him my college fund." There was a pause before a sigh. "We loaned it to him. It was a family decision." "No, it was your decision," I responded, my voice quivering. "I didn't agree to anything. We didn't think you'd be so rigid about it." Rigid, as if asking your parents to keep their promise was some kind of personality fault. "We've supported both of you in different ways," she said. "Luke just needs more right now." "And what do I need?" I was unsure. There was quiet. That was the actual answer. I was not meant to need anything. I was meant to be the stable one, the fixer, and the supporting player in Luke's startup drama. It all came to a climax a week later when I visited their home. I'm not really sure why I went. Perhaps a part of me still wanted them to own it, to accept responsibility for their actions, and to apologize. Instead, I stepped into a full-fledged intervention. Luke was there. So were my parents. The living room appeared tidy, as if they were awaiting visitors. My mother smiled the instant I walked in. "We're so glad you came. Sit down." I remained standing. Luke seemed weary. He had bags under his eyes and an open laptop in front of him. "Cole, man," he said to me. "I messed up. I know I did, but I just need a little help. You're good at this online stuff. You've always been smart. My dad got involved. We're only looking for a few suggestions. Maybe you might assist him restructure the business. There's still time." I glanced at each one. "Have any of you ever considered assisting me?" They blinked as if I had spoken in another language. "I needed help a year ago. I needed support. I needed you, but you didn't show up." My mother's grin faded. "Honey, we were trying to do what's best for the family." "No," I responded, my voice quiet and firm. "You were trying your best for Luke. And now that everything is crashing, you see me as your safety net." Luke said again, but I interrupted him. "I'm not here to mend your mess. I'm not your backup plan. I am not your backup plan." My father stood visibly annoyed. "Don't be so dramatic, Cole." I chuckled. A harsh, humorless sound. "I am not being theatrical. I'm done." With that, I walked out. They did not follow. But 2 hours later, my mother sent one last message. "We just want our family back." I glanced at it. heart thumping, fingers hanging over the screen because they were correct. Something had broken, but not in the way they expected. A chat or a hug would not enough to resolve the situation. Something deeper. And I knew right then that my next step would alter everything. The day I walked out of my parents' house after their small family gathering, I felt 10 feet tall. Yes, I am angry, and my emotions are still raw from betrayal, but I am finally free. It felt as if I had given up waiting for something that would never come. Their acceptance, support, and respect had always been conditional and biased in Luke's favor. But the excitement went off quickly. 2 weeks later, I was sitting in the dark at 2 a.m. I sat in the tight apartment I shared with Ryan, wondering what I was doing. The illumination from my laptop screen illuminated the flaking paint on the wall. On one tab, I had a Shopify dashboard open, and on the other, a spreadsheet with ad expenditure and conversion rates. This was the 5th day in a row. I had not broken even. No sales. My advertising account was flagged for questionable activities. My PayPal payments were placed on hold for fraud prevention. I had $450 in my bank account with no backup plan. That was the bottom. Not only monetarily, but emotionally. Because up until that point, I had this idea in the back of my mind that I would win and make it big only to prove them wrong. But when your stomach growls, your rent is due, your store's checkout is broken, and no one is answering your emails, all of your vengeance fantasies seem like pipe dreams. I did not sleep that night. The next morning, when I stood in front of the mirror brushing my teeth, I scarcely recognized the man staring back. Pale complexion, heavy eyes. I resembled a ghost in my own existence. That same day, Ryan found me in the kitchen, huddled over my phone, reading through job advertisements. He didn't say anything, only took a Coke from the fridge and leaned against the counter. "Are you okay?" he questioned. "Yeah," I lied. He nodded. "Cool. You still doing that online business thing?" I shrugged. "Trying." He stopped for a second before saying something I will never forget. "Well, just don't forget to eat. Even gladiators need sandwiches." I grinned for the first time in days, despite the fact that the queue was ridiculous. That afternoon I headed to the library, not a coffee shop or a co-working place, but a public library with slow Wi-Fi and fluctuating lights. I stayed there for several hours. There were no distractions or noises, just myself, a notebook and a drive to sort things out. I devised a fresh, better idea. Instead than pursuing popular things or attempting to get rich quickly, I chose to establish something small, steady, and honest. I studied SEO as if my life depended on it. I watched videos on affiliate marketing, specialized content sites, creating email lists, and optimizing landing pages. No more get-rich-quick schemes. No more dropshipping from unscrupulous vendors. Simply actual, helpful material. That's how I launched my first information website. I was truly interested in portable camping gear. I wrote each piece myself. I spent weeks collecting product evaluations, learning about keyword clustering, backlink outreach, and the dark magic of Google's algorithm. It was slow going. For the first month, the site had less than 20 visitors each day, but I persevered with it. Updated content, split-tested headlines, discovered better affiliate programs, and concentrated on trust. Meanwhile, I took on freelance work to keep the lights on. Copywriting, SEO audits, and even assisting local companies with their malfunctioning websites. I was surviving again. Not prospering, but surviving. And then there was a minor miracle. 3 months after launching the site, one of my posts, Top 5 Ultralight Camping Stoves for 2022, was picked up by a larger outdoor gear blog. They referred to it in a roundup piece. My traffic increased overnight. I earned $250 in affiliate commissions that week. That's when I realized I had something. That modest victory created a spark. I kept growing, writing more articles, reaching out to more sites, hiring a cheap editor from Upwork when I couldn't keep up, investing in a better theme, quicker hosting, creating a newsletter, and launching a second site, this time in a completely different niche. Minimalist productivity tools. By the end of that year, I was running 3 websites. One earns $1,200 per month, another makes $600, and one barely breaks even. But they all totaled up. I wasn't rich, but I didn't have to be. I was free. I had created it all myself. I have no college, no degree, no aid, and I have yet to speak to my parents. They didn't understand what I was doing. For all they knew, I was still discovering myself. Still struggling in the post-gap year days as Luke attempted to resurrect his tech Frankenstein. But even that was unraveling through the grapevine, particularly Sophie, my cousin who remained in touch despite the difficulties. I discovered Luke's business was failing. His biggest client had backed out. His rent was overdue by 4 months. The debt that our parents co-signed was in default. There were speculations that he might be sued for undeliverable software. He had apparently begun to appear like a shadow of himself at family gatherings. His girlfriend departed. He relocated back into my parents' basement, where his business began years ago. My folks were busting up too. My mother's postings were increasingly infrequent. No more gushing subtitles praising Luke's great thinking. My father stopped responding to texts from extended relatives who were beginning to ask unpleasant questions about the money. And me. I relocated to a nicer apartment, purchased a new laptop, a standing desk, a potted plant named Gordon, and even recruited a virtual assistant to help with my third website. This one focuses on home office equipment. The irony was not lost on me. Luke had a showy workplace with ribbon cuts and glass walls. I had a quiet room, a good chair, and constant revenue. I considered contacting out. I considered rubbing it in but decided not to. I wasn't there yet. Because, despite how fantastic things were going, a part of me still hurt. I couldn't explain it to anyone, including Ryan. It wasn't all about money or college. It was the betrayal. The fact that the people who reared me and professed to love me looked me in the eyes and told me my ambitions were meaningless, that my future was throwaway, and that my hard work was optional. That makes a mark. It affects how you trust. It affects the way you hope. However, even scars may harden into armor. And finally, I felt powerful again. About a year after leaving home, I received a phone call. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. It was Luke. His voice sounded shaky. It was quieter than I had ever heard before. "Hey Cole, I know it's been a while. I don't know, man. Things are really bad right now. I messed up. I know I did, but I could really use some help." I watched the video 6 times. Not because I was thinking about assisting him. I was not. I listened because I wanted to know what it sounded like when someone who had always been given everything suddenly ran out of hands to catch him. I never phoned him back, but I did preserve the message. It reminded me why I had done all of this in the first place. Why did I spend every night learning topics no one taught me? Why I dealt with panic episodes, 0 weeks, and landlords who didn't care whether you figured things out. Because they underestimated me, and it was going to hurt them. I was no longer a background character. I was going to become the story twist. Luke's voicemail hung in my inbox, like a lighted fuse that never quite blew. I listened to it every few days, not to remind myself of how far I'd come, but to stay grounded. It reminded me that while I had spent the previous year grinding in solitude, developing in the shadows, the individuals who dismissed me were now drowning in the mess they had made. But I wasn't in a rush to boast. Real retribution is more than simply proving someone wrong. It is about allowing people to understand it for themselves, slowly and painfully, without a lifeline. That type of calculating requires time, accuracy, a little timing, and a lot of restraint. And now I have all 3. My first significant chance came from an unexpected source, a LinkedIn message. One of the firms whose affiliate program I had been working with contacted me to see if I would be interested in consulting. Apparently, my site was generating more revenue than some of their larger partners, and they wanted to know how. At first I hesitated. I'd never done anything official like that. But when I saw their estimate of $4,500 for a 10-hour audit, I accepted. That single work covered 2 months' rent. That assignment led to 2 more. I instantly gained credibility, clients, and references. But most importantly, I had an idea. It began as a joke. Really? Ryan and I were sitting in our flat. He'd recently departed his retail job to pursue a career in app development, and I joked how amusing it would be to write a public case study of my path from betrayed to self-made. I called it. Ryan laughed. "You'd break the internet." I hesitated. "No, seriously. What if I did tell my story, not in a bitter way, but educational, strategic? What if I turned everything they thought was my downfall into a blueprint for how to build something from nothing?" He leaned forward. "You'd get clients, sponsors, and possibly a book deal." "Maybe," I said, grinning. "But most importantly, I'd acquire eyeballs, because if I was going to play this game, if I was going to deconstruct their story and rewrite my own, I wanted them to see it." That night I purchased a new domain name, something clean and professional. I began writing the first installment of a multi-part blog article detailing how I established my affiliate sites, dealt with burnout, and negotiated the minefield of internet business without money or help. It was neither passionate nor bitter. It was surgical, simply the facts. Each post concluded with one line: no degree, no assistance, and no excuses. The post took off. First on Reddit, then on Hacker News, and finally, a YouTuber in the finance specialty created a reaction video titled, "The Kid Who Got Cut Off and Built an Empire." In 2 weeks, I got over 15,000 email subscribers. My website's traffic skyrocketed. A corporation offered to acquire one of them for a mid-5-figure sum. I declined since I had larger intentions. Plans that included eventually emerging from the digital shadows and entering the room where choices are made. So I started attending local meetings, SEO events, tech panels, and even a few startup expos. I was silent at first, observing and studying how others spoke when they didn't think you were worth paying attention to. But finally, I began speaking, giving views, and providing guidance. Not the showy hustle bro type of advice, but real-world wisdom. People appreciated it. Some people took notes. This is how I met Olivia. She was a UX designer who had recently departed her business and was seeking for her next project. We met for coffee after one of the meetings and got along right away. Sharp intelligence, sharp wit, and no tolerance for fluff. Within a week, we were thinking ways to combine my content approach with her design expertise. By the end of the month, we had a plan and a functioning firm. We named it Dustproof, a digital product agency that created, developed, and monetized specialized content companies from scratch. I managed traffic and monetization. She oversaw branding and user experience. We divided everything 50-50. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about making a message. We weren't just constructing places. We were creating leverage. And now that I had it, I began planning for the true vengeance. It began properly with Luke. Sophie, who continued to pop up in our group conversations, informed me that he was looking for a new investor. Apparently, a local business incubator was considering him for a $75,000 grant to support struggling tech startups. Luke had offered them a half-baked pivot, an AI-driven small business assistant software with a lot of buzzwords. But they were interested since he was well-connected and experienced. Olivia raised an eyebrow when I told her he was seriously pitching AI now. "Oh yeah," I replied. "He dropped out of college, burned through hundreds of thousands, got bailed out by his parents, and now he's selling himself as a visionary." She drank her beverage. "Let's bury him." I smiled. "Thought you'd never ask." First, we developed a competing notion. Same place, same market, but with a better name, branding, and, most crucially, a working MVP. We did not even try to disguise it. We gave it a name that was just one syllable different than Luke's. Similar enough to pique attention, yet distinct enough to be legal. We created a great landing page. We created demo videos. We released a blog article titled, "What Most Business Apps Get Wrong and How We Fixed It," which included screenshots, testimonials, and a live waitlist. Then we launched inexpensive advertising targeting the incubator's zip code. Within days, our version had taken over their LinkedIn feeds. I even joined the incubator's public Slack channel under an alias merely to lurk. And sure enough, 3 days later, someone wrote, "Hey, has anyone seen this new tool? Looks super clean. Might be worth looking into before we finalize the next grant." Luke never saw it coming. Sophie messaged me the next morning. "Not sure if you were involved, but Jay is freaking out." LOL. I never replied. I just put down my phone and got back to work. Because as pleasurable as it was to trip him up, he was not the intended goal. My parents were. They were the ones who wagered against me, telling me I should be proud of giving up on my future. Who cheered at Luke's big opening and then ignored me when I asked, "What am I supposed to do now?" I could have given them a letter, an invoice, or a link to my blog. But it would have been too simple. Instead, I waited for the ideal opportunity, which arrived just in time for my cousin Claire's wedding. She was being married at a nearby winery, and everyone was invited. My entire extended family, Luke, my parents, even folks I hadn't seen since middle school. Sophie gave me a screenshot of the guest list and asked whether I was attending. I nearly said no. The prospect of coming into that gathering surrounded by individuals who assumed I was a dropout floating through life made my skin crawl. But then I got an idea, a proper setup. I phoned Olivia. "How do you feel about a little show and tell?" She joked. "I love drama. What are you thinking?" "I want to arrive like a ghost-turned-millionaire." "Oh," she responded, smirking into the phone. "We're doing a reveal." So we arranged it. We got a new suit, fitted and elegant, with no logos or flash, just presence. Olivia assisted me in creating a bio card for the event, a little folded piece of paper that announced Dustproof as a sponsor of the venue's forthcoming small business retreat. I ensured that they featured our website and my name. Cole Lane, a co-founder, I didn't inform anyone I was coming. I did not RSVP. I just stepped in, and when I did, every discussion within a 10-foot radius slowed to a crawl. Because the last time they saw me, I was the kid who went missing before college, the one who waived his tuition and took a gap year to think things out. Now I resemble someone you might search up on Google, and Luke. He was at the bar, nursing a drink, and appeared to be on the verge of a nervous breakdown. Our gazes met. He blinked. I nodded. No words. My mother was halfway across the room, chatting to a great aunt I scarcely recognized. When she finally recognized me, her face went through a whole four-stage response. Confusion, recognition, a forced grin, and something approaching terror. I strolled over calmly and civilly, as if I didn't need anything from anyone. "Cole," she said, breathless. I didn't know you were coming." "I wasn't sure either," I explained calmly. "But one of the event sponsors invited me." Her face twitched. "Oh," she said. I let it dangle in the air. My father joined her a bit later. His grin was stiffer and more forced. "Son," he replied. "It's good to see you." "Likewise." He attempted to inquire further, but I moved to welcome someone else, the event manager, and handed her my bio card to confirm my table. She took one look, smiled and said, "Oh, you're the guy from Dustproof. We've heard so much about your work." My parents became quiet. It was not about flaunting anything. It was about being there, regaining the area I had been driven out of, and compelling people to watch since the performance was just getting started. The wedding celebration played out like a stage play, and I was tired of being a supporting part. My parents sat stiffly at their table across the room, hardly sipping their beverages. Luke stayed around, visibly shaken, staring at me every few minutes as if I were a ghost he couldn't quite expel. Several of our relatives made small chat with me, polite, interested, and awkward. Devin leaned in with a sneer and asked, "Didn't you drop out or something? What are you up to now?" I said nothing. I simply pointed to the Dustproof placard on the table, where my name appeared alongside a brief description of the company I co-founded, and a subtle QR code led directly to a case study titled, "The Tuition That Wasn't, How Losing Everything at 18 Helped Me Build a $600,000 Content Portfolio Before 21. It was gentle. I had avoided naming names, rants, Reddit postings, and bitter breakdowns in favor of pure facts, impartial tone, and a recorded timetable, but anybody with half a brain could read between the lines. And, based by Luke's expression as he read the code, I watched him do it. He clearly had half a brain. The repercussions began 2 days later. My dad sent me an SMS. "We need to talk face to face." I didn't respond, and neither did my mom. "Your post. People are asking questions. Please take it down." I laughed. Take it down. After they presented me as the unselfish younger brother who just stepped aside for the family's future entrepreneur. No. This was the reckoning. And it was no longer personal. It was structural, tidy, and inescapable. Because as soon as the case study got viral, people began connecting the links. Sophie informed me that Luke's previous contractor, whom he abandoned after promising stock options, posted the link on Twitter with the description, "Oh, so this is why he never paid me." A day later, the local startup incubator that had been evaluating Luke for a second round of funding issued a modest update on their website, putting a halt to external investments pending internal review. Luke not only removed himself from the list, but he also destroyed it. Meanwhile, a handful of Luke's early investors, mostly local dentists and real estate agents with whom my father played poker, were unhappy. The case study did not identify them, but it traced the flow of funds using ambiguous terms such as family-backed firms with no KPIs and early investors promising huge profits with minimal monitoring. Everyone involved knew who it was about. One of them, Dr. Richards, supposedly grabbed my father at a neighborhood barbecue and asked him directly, "Did you give your kids tuition to Luke's startup?" My father did not respond, but silence in such circles says loudly. I began hearing from individuals, including former professors, a handful of my high school friends, and even one of Luke's ex-partners. They all responded with some form of, "I read your article." I had no clue since that was the force of truth. Not yelled, not exaggerated, but just documented, calm, measured and unapologetic. And that calm, more than anything else, was what brought them down. Luke attempted to answer with, sort of. He wrote his own blog post, a half-hearted, jargon-filled jumble headlined, "Entrepreneurship is Messy. Lessons from a startup that didn't go as planned." It was full of vague apologies and terms like pushing limits, building under pressure, and learning from setbacks. No one purchased it. In fact, the responses were harsh. "This is what happens when you play with other people's money." Your brother had every right to speak up. You owe him more than an apology. You didn't fail because you took risks. You failed because you took people. My parents, however, did not reply publicly. It was not their style, but they felt it. The call ended. The text has dried up. My mom unfriended half of our extended relatives on Facebook. My father took down his LinkedIn profile. At first I assumed it was shame, but it wasn't. Control was slipping through their fingers, softly and mercilessly, and as they shrank inward, my universe grew. I accepted an invitation to speak at a digital entrepreneurship conference in Austin. I shared the stage with entrepreneurs who were twice my age. Dinners, panels, and interviews, all weird and earned. Olivia and I expanded Dustproof into a full-fledged enterprise. We recruited 2 writers, a project manager, and a sales lead. By my 21st birthday, our monthly income had surpassed $75,000, excluding affiliate commissions and license arrangements. The nicest thing was that I never told my parents directly. I never phoned them to gloat. Never texted, "Told you so." Never dumped bank statements in group chats because quiet was louder, distance was louder, and dignity yelled. One more thing happened, and I realized the tale had come full circle. I spotted the listing on a Saturday morning. Luke's startup, what remained of it, was being liquidated. Office equipment, monitors, and a few standing desks were all listed on Facebook Marketplace using a burner account with no profile picture. I purchased one of the desks and had it delivered to the Dustproof office. Olivia felt it was an odd decision, but I informed her that certain things just belong where they're most helpful. And now, every time I sit at it, this sleek, slightly scuffed $1,200 ergonomic remnant of his failing enterprise, I smile, knowing that this was my payback. No pomp or show, just quiet, unmistakable success. The type they couldn't avoid. The type they couldn't touch.